Oh, Allan Sherman, he was fine. A man way ahead of his time. You listen to Weird Al, you think he was his pal. Hilariously, sporadically, he did too many parodies. Oh, Allan Sherman, he was a Jew. In his music, made sure you knew. Went to the top of the charts. It was quite a start, but all good things come crashing down. They put him in the ground, oh yeah. Oh, Allan Sherman, he was fine. We're gonna trace his family line. Decades before Weird Al Yankovic became a household name, there was Allan Sherman. He was a song parodist who became really famous in the early 1960s, most notably for his big hit Hello Mudda Hello Fada, but he parodied a lot of public domain songs and actually ended up having some of the best-selling records of the 1960s, many of which can be found nowadays in the dollar bins in record stores. Unlike a lot of other Jewish artists of the time, he didn't try to hide his cultural identity. In fact, he embraced it. You can hear it in a lot of his lyrical content, and in fact, it's for this reason why I think he's very well known among the Jewish community. In fact, I even grew up listening to his songs when I was a kid. My parents showed me all of his hits and whatnot. Now, interestingly enough, Sherman is actually his mother's surname, and after his parents divorced when he was really young, he decided to take on his mother's last name. His father, Percy Copeland, who actually died while attempting a 100-day fast, had basically next to no relationship with his son, and in fact, they had a very tumultuous relationship when he was younger, and then essentially they were cut off from each other. So out of respect for Allan Sherman's decision to take on his mother's last name, and also to change things up a little bit, in this episode we're going to be talking about his matrilineal ancestry, so his mother's line, etc. But before we begin, I just have one favor to ask you, which is that you take a moment and demolish the like button. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever I post new episodes. So thank you so much for doing that, and let's get started. Allan Gerald Copeland was born 1924 in Chicago, Illinois to Percy Copeland and Rose Sherman. They moved shortly thereafter to Los Angeles and divorced not long after that. Rose, whose Jewish name was Rivka, remarried a British man named David Siegel. And then Allan moved back to Chicago to live with his grandparents before eventually heading off as an adult to pursue a career as a radio and TV writer. The grandparents were Leon, aka Liebisch Avraham Sherman, and Esther Lustig. The couple were Jewish immigrants from Poland who, along with Rose, had sailed to America in 1909. Now, while the manifest says that Esther came from Radomsk, what we're actually going to find out in a little bit is that she came from a small town in the Radom region of Poland, not from the cities of Radomsko or Radom, which is what I initially had thought. From a lot of the documents of the siblings and Esther, I was able to figure out that they came from a town called Stasziw, which is located in modern-day Poland. Esther's transcribed death record helps us to get back a further generation, letting us know that her parents were Leib, Lustig, and Schendel Fiedler. And here is where the magic begins. I will admit there's a little bit of speculation here, which I'm going to get into, but the logic pans out pretty darn well. A handful of people with the surname Fiddle or Fiedler from Stasziw came to Chicago, and they all seem to be children of this guy Shmuel Leib Fiddle. On JRI Poland, I went through the available records in Stasziw for people with that last name, And what I found was a birth record for the only person that could have been a good match, and that was a woman named Sora Shandel Fiddle, born in 1859 to, yes, Shmuel Leib Fiddle and Gitla Zilberbogen. Given that Esther was born around 1883, it indicates that her mother was probably born between around the 1840s and mid-1860s, and thankfully the Stashev records, they go till 1865, and so this birth record from 1859 is by far the most likely person to be the mother. First of all, we have the name Shandel, which is specifically referenced in the death certificate. There's one other person named Shandel, but they died as an infant, and even though the record's cut off at 1865, it is pretty unlikely that her mother was born after 1865. Another noteworthy piece of information is that Shmuel Leib Fiddle died in 1894, and around 1896, Leib, Lustig, and Shandel named a son Samuel, which is the anglicized version of Shmuel. So it seems pretty clear that they named their child after Shmuel Leib. Now, they didn't give him the middle name Leib, but this is because his father, was named Leib Lustig. And in Jewish Ashkenazi naming tradition, you don't name people usually after living individuals, especially not after yourself. So they didn't name him Shmuel Leib, but that's only because his father was already named Leib, so they named him Shmuel and gave him a different middle name. While this is not a 100% open and shut case, I think it's very safe to say that Allan Sherman's mother's 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 mother was a woman named Gitla Zilberbogen, born around 1840 in Poland. And while I was not able to find her birth record, so I don't know whether she came from Stashev, I do know that the rest of the family was born in Stashev and around that region. So the next time you're listening to My Son the Folk Singer, or My Son the Celebrity, or My Son the Nut, or Peter and the Commissar, or whatever your favorite Allan Sherman albums or songs are, you can know that he took on his mother's last name due to a divorce, and also that his family hailed from Poland. So anyways, that wraps up this episode. Before we go, I just want to remind you to follow me on social media. Please, I've included links down below to both my Instagram and my Twitter, where I post photos of my family and occasionally some thoughts on genealogy. So make sure to follow me on that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.